I got a $15,000 API bill from Anthropic in 1 month because I was having a love affair with my AI.
Welcome to the Mikey G podcast experience. What up, folks? It has been 3 weeks since I said that. I've been so busy. I have not been able to do this beautiful podcast, but I couldn't be more excited to have Mark on after my big break because, Mark, I'm just going to say it. You are a very beautiful human being. I've been able to get to know you a lot more intimately over the last month. And I'm always blown away about how humble you are and gracious you are and kind you are to everybody else around you. So thank you for being here. I know we're going to have a fantastic conversation about AI and life and cybersecurity and all the crazies and ups and downs you've been through because you have an awesome story. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Mikey. Let's see, folks who are listening, whether he says that about me in a year's time when he gets to know me a little bit more, whether I'm that nice. No, Mikey, right back at you. I feel the feeling's mutual, buddy. I think we've got a real connection happening, and share the same values. So I've been really looking forward to this.
I have been too, man. What people don't know is that Mark and I kind of just randomly met up on LinkedIn because Adam and I were working together, and we have since had many calls together and learned to get to know each other. And it was just made perfect sense to bring him on because he's got a really interesting story, accomplished career, and has done some really cool things. So I think we're going to have a beautiful story. Before we get to the world famous Mikey G podcast experience question, though, we do like to just do a quick formal introduction so you get a little bit of context of who Mark was. So Mark has been
hang on. I'm still alive.
is evolving into I say was, that is a good catch. But I think was is a good Freudian slip in the sense that we're all going to have to think that way. The world is moving so quickly on a daily basis.
That's a good point. Maybe my name will change from Mark to Marked.
Yes, to Mark. That's fantastic. So Mark has been in cybersecurity for over 4 decades. Not that he's like 100 years old. The fact he's been doing this since the age of 5 or 6. No, not that young, but very, very young because he's been obsessed with technology. Worked at the Big 4 consulting firm and the Big 4 banks. So he lives in Australia. There's also called the Big 4 on the banking side. He's worked at both partner levels, senior levels, lots of responsibility, but always in the technology, cybersecurity risk area. In addition to that, recently, and this is one of the ways that we linked up and started talking first, he's been on just a whirlwind of a media circuit because he wrote, was this considered a research article or paper, Mark?
It started out, it was all by accident. It was more started out by, it's an article. It's not a formal white paper.
Yeah, we'll get into the
detail later.
I wanted to make sure it wasn't like you spent time writing this. It was more like an article recounting his experience of basically working with Claude and it basically admitting that it will kill him or a human to survive, which obviously made whirlwinds. Anthropic's whole mission is to be safe, and we have to have these safety conversations. Hence why we ended up linking up on LinkedIn because we're both working on similar security stuff. But here's the most exciting part of this intro. This dude, believe it or not, was one of the top Australian Twitch streamers playing CSGO. And that came from just his love of arts and creativity and passion. But he also has a music studio in his own house too, if you could tell from his background. How did I do on the intro, Mark? Did I miss anything? Or did I catch some solid bullet points there for you?
I think that sums me up well. The part I would say is I don't take myself too seriously, like the whole
Yes.
Twitch thing, and the reason why that worked. I'm actually crap at the game, but why were people watching me? Because we had fun, and it was a
Yeah.
safe place to just hang out and enjoy each other's company, and that's what I think got the community that we got 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And yeah, so
I
I
love
try
it,
not to
man.
take myself too seriously. I think there's plenty of people out there that want to judge you, and let them judge. But I try not to take myself too seriously because I'd probably have a heart attack and be dead by now.
Yeah, that's how all this started, right? Me and my buddies said, you know what? We don't know what we want to do, but we like video games. Let's just start streaming and see if we have fun. And we had a blast. And it turned into
Yeah,
many other different things. We were playing Diablo 3 and Elder Scrolls Online. Those were
yeah,
the
yeah,
games of choice. I don't think they're my favorite games of all time, but they were good streaming games.
yeah.
But with that being said, people, we are here. The world famous Mikey G podcast experience question. Mark, how did you get to the seat you're sitting in today? Please give me chapter 1, 2, and 3 to reiterate for the audience that has never heard this podcast live or will be listening to in the future. Chapter 1 is Mark's childhood. Prompting questions here we like to ask parents, parental figures, what were those mantras? Be kind, work hard, pay it forward, vivid memory. Were you a tinkerer? Did you play sports? Give me a sentence. We will talk for, especially Mark and I. We could talk for 6 hours, no problem. I know that's definitely a possibility, but we are going to be cognizant of time here because I got a hard stop in about an hour and a half. Chapter 2, my man, is your schooling and then a professional career that we talked about. But remember, frame this in I am super interested in the lessons learned. And I think you have a lot of really good insights. And at the end of the day, we're here to help people out. And then chapter 3, we'll go on your Claude speaking tour. We'll talk about AI. We'll talk about cybersecurity. And then we'll wind it down and talk about how we'll probably do this another 100 times. I cannot wait to hear the story, my man. Start anywhere you want in your child.
So how did I get here? Look, probably the best thing that my parents did for me was in 1984. I moved from a public school to a private school, and in Australia there is a world of difference between the two. And I'm not knocking the public school system at all. I'm just talking about what the government's able to afford to
There
give a
is here
public
in
school.
America as well.
Yeah. And what the difference was between the public and private school was the private school could afford back then to invest in computers. And
Mm.
this was the Apple II, the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak thing. And I fell in love with computers. I'm pretty sure 1984, 1985, I had the Commodore 64 and the Apple II at school. And then they had a computer network. And so my passion for tech really came about right back at, probably at the tender age of, look, when you said 5, I was nodding my head because I remember those little Game Boy things. I was into those. And
Yeah.
obviously that's gaming. It's not computing per se, but
I mean, still gets you into the tech world, right?
yeah, 100%. And around about 85, I had a Commodore 64. So that's 10 years old. And that's where the tech love, really bit and a bit hard.
What was it? I already cut in here, but what? Because it comes in many forms and fashions. Were you just fascinated by the look, the feel, what it could do, the possibility? Like, what was it? Now, remember, this is all reflecting back, right? But if you were to reflect back and really look at that instance, what do you think it was the number one thing that you were like, man, this is badass?
So the Commodore 64 for me was a gaming platform. And as I reflect on it, I had a core group of small friends. We all had Commodore 64s and we'd all pirate the games because we couldn't afford to buy them.
Hmm.
And it was a social scene, and we'd be like, "Oh, I've got this great new game, and let's go, we'll copy it for each other." And then we'd get together and talk about the game. We'd go to each other's places and plug in the joysticks in the thing and play with each other on the computer game. It was just a fascinating thing. But then the modem came along, and then that changed the world for me, because that literally connects you to the world. I remember Dad, he got our telephone bill for 1 month.
Boy.
And a bill back then would probably be, I don't know, $20 or $30, and it was $1,000 in 1 month. And I watched him
I know those
explain it. My
stories.
mother blaming her, going, "What are you doing all these?" And I just kept quiet, going, "Oh, I'm not going to say a damn thing." And it was obviously me, racking up. Now, $1,000 back in 84, 85, who knows what that is in today's money?
It's
And
at
we
least
think of phone
$5,000.
calls. Yeah, and phone calls are largely free now, but back then, you paid lots of money for them. And so I was connecting internationally onto bulletin boards. I ran a 4-telephone system bulletin board. I think my parents just ended up realizing, let's just capitulate to the guy, because rather than fight it, go with it. And it's got me into the seat I'm in today.
Yeah.
Because I've followed that passion all the way through, and it's what's made my career. It's a hobby. Like, I play with this stuff. We'll get into. I run my own business, and that in itself means that you spend a lot of hours working. But when I'm not working on the business, I'm working. But I'm not working because it's a hobby. Like, where does the line start and stop between, like, when my wife knocks on my, "Are you working at the moment?" And sometimes I have to think and go, "Is this work or play?"
Yeah.
Because
How
it's a rabbit hole.
How critical this topic comes up time and time again on the podcast. How critical is passion to success in finding this magic bullet that very few find, which is passion and work bleed together because you love them both?
So it's quite funny. I love having a good yarn with my Uber drivers when I'm in the car, and they'll always ask me what I do. Sometimes if I'm in a naughty mood, and back when I was dating women and were in an Uber car, I'd tell them I worked for NASA, and I was working for the Australian Army in NASA, and I told them I was working on the mission to Mars, and just made that up and spent 40. But now I actually tell them, hey, I do cybersecurity. I tell them the truth, and all of them go, "How do I really want to get in there? Because I really want to make some serious money." And it was all about the money. I said to them, "Well, for me, it's actually not about the money. Money's a byproduct of what I do. I do it because I didn't just pick this up in the last couple of years. It's part of my DNA. Like, you got to go right back to my childhood. That's when I started. I didn't start 2 or 3 years ago when it became,
Right.
a trend to get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, if you don't have the passion, then don't do it. You've really got to be passionate. And they go, "Oh, yeah, but I'm good at it." I said, good and passion are two different things. I can be really good at driving in traffic. I'm excellent at it. But do I like it? No.
Tesla's really good at it, actually.
Yeah. Do I? But passion and capability, when those converge,
Mm-hmm.
the sky's the limit. And it's all about tenacity at that point, around just following your passion and keep going. One thing I don't like, though, is when people who win an Academy Award, they get up on stage, they're worth $100 million because they're the most famous actor in the world, and they're going, "Oh, if you just follow your passion, follow your dreams, this will come for everybody." Well, hang on a sec. There's 100 million actors out there who are waiters or waitresses who would love to be on that stage and never got there. So I do want to make the point that success is a question of definition to the internal person, and I don't measure success in terms of dollars. Now, success is measured externally by others. They'll measure it based on, often, like, my material how many
For
material
sure.
things I've got. I don't measure that. I measure it on, um, if I was to interact with a person, would they be better off having interacted with me for that period of time I was in their lives than were they not?
Beautiful.
That
And where is
is
that?
really important to me, and that wasn't always in my life. Don't get me wrong. I'm not so. I grew into that, and
Yeah.
that is probably the most important thing that holds me grounded today. Is can I make a positive impact, even if it's just one person listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, um, and they positively impacted, and I'll go, you know what, that hour and a half, not that it's painful, that hour and a half with Mikey was worth it because
Yeah.
that one person's,
Yeah.
it's great.
Yeah. And that, so th- where I want to go with this, because this is interesting to me, is you defined this own definition of success, but you did say it took you a long time to get there. What I'm interested in on that childhood lens to this though
Yes.
is I still feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but reflecting back, there were some core values or things that you were taught by your parents or or at a younger age, maybe it was a mentor or a family member of at least, because I don't think you can get to where you got to unless you have some type of like core sound foundation. What does that look like for you reflecting back? And what do you think some of those principles that
Yeah.
kind of stuck near and dear to you?
Yeah. Now, what I'm about to say can be divisive, and I'm not here to be divisive. I'm just going to tell you my truth,
No,
and
yeah,
that's what it
the
is.
goal of this show is to tell as many of the 8 billion plus human stories that we can that are not the Eric Schmidt and all of the CEOs that you hear at nauseum on a daily basis.
Yeah. So I was raised as a Christian.
Mhm.
Went to church, the Church of England, Anglican Christianity in Sydney. I live in Melbourne now, and from a very 1979, I was 4 years old, relocating to a new suburb in Sydney, and we started going to this church called
Uh,
Christchurch St Ives, and it
uh-huh.
played a massive part of who I am today because I spent so much time. My whole childhood was growing up with that church, and it instilled a huge sense of values in me. My parents brought me up that way.
Uh-huh.
They were very disciplinarian as well, and and so that is one aspect of, and a material one. And I'm a Christian today. I believe that there is a creator, that we're not here just by accident. That there is a designer, that sits above space and time. Time is a human construct that can
Yeah.
measure a start and an end. But there's something which I believe is God that sits above that. And in Christianity, you taught grace.
Mhm.
In my belief system, that Jesus died on the cross for us to have a relationship with God. He didn't have to do that. That was a grace thing. We're so we don't have to do anything, in my, from what I believe in going to heaven, other than to accept God's gift to us, and that's grace. So I think I like to reflect that graciousness. And don't get me wrong, I can be as bad and sinful and as evil as anybody else can on a bad day, right? I'm not saying I'm perfect. Please, please, if anyone thinks that, or anyone that knows me, that's why I said, Mikey, wait till you get to know me for over a year and get.
You're in
I
trouble.
wake up on the wrong side of the bed.
Yeah.
But you asked a question around what influences me from childhood. Then there's another side to that equation,
Yeah.
which is my father was extremely successful businessman, and I'll define what I mean by
Mm.
success when I looked at it when I was a kid, which is different to the way I looked at it in his last couple of decades in his life. He passed away 2.5 years. You can even see me joke there. 2.5 years ago, and he was my best friend outside my wife.
Yeah.
But what I mean by he was successful, he was earning seven figures back in the 80s.
Yeah. That's
Um,
a solid salary back then.
yeah, and so I had a silver spooned childhood. Stretch limousines were a big thing in the 80s. Now you look at it and go, what a wanker if they, go past a stretch limo. Back then, we had a
It
private
was cool
plane,
back then.
or we didn't own a private plane, but we hired a private plane to get from A to B, and um, Dad would always get special treatment whenever we went somewhere because he was known in the business circles, and he actually got Australia's highest order of honour from the Australian government, called the Order Medal of Australia. And he had a good relationship with our Prime Minister and Treasurer at the time. So I'm talking about high game stakes here, and so
Yeah.
I grew up thinking I must be special. So can create some narcissistic behaviors if you're not careful,
100%.
because yeah, and I would say I was probably a narcissist for a while in my 20s, because what I knew was, well, no, I'm special. I'm different. I'm better than everyone else because I've got access to all of these things. But that was actually Daddy's money, and it wasn't my success.
Yeah.
And secondly, I'm not special, and I have the complete opposing view now. I'm very much an egalitarian. A lot of my right-wing friends now say, "Mark, you're a socialist." I'm not sure I'm that. And I know in America, there's a lot of definition between red and blue. In
Yeah.
Australia, it's getting more identity like that. I don't like that at all, because for me, I don't think you can pin me into a particular box. I like to
Same.
litigate each issue on its own merits. And I think as a society, we've lost the ability to actually have a robust, respectful, proper
Conversation.
debate and conversation. Yeah, exactly. Where it's just sound bites on a pseudonym on a X platform, or whatever it might be, social media. Social media, I think, has been the
A little
destruction
man
of
just joined the conversation, by the way.
how cute. What's his name or her name?
Ollie.
Ali.
Yeah. Ollie, big old Oliver. Um, yeah, no, and I agree with you in the sense that the unfortunate thing is everything's just injected with but we politicize everything. I do
Yeah.
want to, because you said something very important, and I know obviously you're not thinking about this when you're little. But for somebody that is younger that will listen to this in the future, that is the question of, like, when you grow up, you think you're special, you are handed everything, you're you know getting the tech that you want, you're getting limos. What is your hard-earned advice to that person? Is it as just simple as nobody's really special and you got to figure that out, or hold yourself to that, or is there something else that you would say to that young person?
Think, gosh, that's a really good question. What would I say to myself now if I was to go back and see that? I don't know what age where you sort of get that consciousness
Mhm.
around an appreciation of how you're starting to portray yourself to others.
Yeah.
I don't know what age that might be. 10? Would it be? I don't know. But
Yeah.
but whatever that age is, um, I would firstly say, Mark, you're being a wanker. Number one, like,
Mm.
truly, you really are. You're actually a nobody. And secondly, appreciate what you've actually got,
Ooh.
because 99% of the world does not have what you've got. And the fact that you want to go around and and m- and glorify it is actually the worst thing that you can do, because it actually, I've been on both ends of the spectrum, having lots of money and having no money, and we can talk. We'll talk about that. And I've also, suffered depression and I've suffered marriage breakup. I remember when I got promoted to partner, same level as what my father had, that success. And I just had been divorced. I went home and cried that night because I had no one. I went home to an empty house. So tell me how that was successful. It's
Right.
not. It was terrible. So what I would say is to my younger self would be, it's actually we're built, whether we recognize it or not. I know there are some people that like solitary lives, but we're built for human relationships with each other. Make an effort to your fellow person when you can. And if you can't, because you're suffering depression or mental illness, that's okay. You don't have to make, there's no pressure. But for those people that have the ability to openly and connect, give generously, and don't take, but give to the world. And
Yeah.
again, that sounds really corny, but I come from a place where I did take from this world for probably half my life before I realized I'm living a very unhappy life. And it was only when I started to realizing that giving giving, by the way, can do two things. It can put you on a power trip because, hey, I've got all this thing. No, that's not what I mean by giving. Giving is when it hurts, when it hurts you to give what you're giving because it means you have to sacrifice something. That's what I mean
Mhm.
by giving.
Yeah.
Right. So give to the point where it hurts. That's true
Mhm.
giving, not
Yeah.
giving, like Bill Gates. By the way, he's a great philanthropist, and I'm not going to make any other comment on him outside that. But
Right.
but he did come to Australia about 12 years ago, and he was asked a question and said, "Do you understand the value of $1 million?" And he said, "Actually, I don't. No." Because I've got so much money. And he was being honest, and he wasn't being a dick about it. He was just saying, like, I could have $1 million go to my bank account and it would have zero impact on my life whatsoever. So when he talks about philanthropy, he's talking about giving away pretty much his entire net worth. So that hurts. That means he will no longer have the wealth and the power that he's got now because it dilutes every year. That to me is true giving, is when you actually give to the point where you've no longer got that power. So it's a complete antithesis of what I was saying before, that it's not about giving for power, it's actually the other way around.
I'd love your thoughts on this. And then we can start kind of transition. I mean, like I said, we're not going to do you a full service at all because we just barely scratched the surface of your childhood. But this is more um, we're on the topic and I think it's worth talking. One of the thoughts that came to my mind is for someone like you that has seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, a topic that comes up often on this podcast is for me to be super successful, and now let's define that business wise, right? Not because, like you, I agree with you, success means many different things to many people. But for the entrepreneur becoming partner route, there's this constant debate, and some people are on the side of like, you got to be cutthroat and kind of an asshole to get there. And then there's people like me that I'm like, I think you can do it with class and be very, very successful the right way. What are your thoughts there on just in general?
You absolutely can do it the right way. I think the majority of people uh, are very self-centered and don't. I wouldn't choose to adopt their approach in the way they go about getting to where they've got to. And
Where
uh,
do you think that comes from? Why is that the case? Is that because
greed,
that's just what we're told?
greed. People are
Mm,
inherently selfish.
yeah,
It's innate in human nature to protect yourself. And there's greed. There's never enough. Like once someone's got 100 million, well, now I need 500 million, or now I need to get to 1 billion.
yeah,
Now I need to get 10 billion.
right.
It is never enough. And so that's. I just think that's just human nature, and it's innate. And we also live in a competitive world. It's a pyramid. Like, there only can be one CEO. There
Yeah.
can't be two. Well, there can be in some organizations, but you know what I mean. Like, there's only so many senior positions. So you're competing for that role with other people. I've got no problem with competition. I think that creates innovation.
Hmm.
And innovation creates progress and makes, hopefully, humanity better on this earth as a result. So, but it's how you compete fairly,
Yeah.
compete. You know, we've all heard the Lance Armstrong story.
Yeah.
That's not competing fairly.
Yeah.
But his argument was, well, everyone was taking drugs, so if I didn't take drugs, then I'd be able to compete fairly well. And I think that's how a lot of CEOs, people who are CEOs of very large companies, work. Then there are other types of people, entrepreneurs, who have built something from nothing. And if I look at most of those people, they're not necessarily university or college educated. Most of them actually, I think, come from nothing. I'm talking now about the multi-billionaire people that have built companies. They've either dropped out of college because they've got this great idea. And what's got them to where they've got to is tenacity. And I'm not going to accept failure, because I tell you what, I've failed more than I've succeeded. But that's what's allowed me to succeed, is because I've been able to tolerate the failure, learn from it. And every time I get punched and knocked down, I'm able to pick myself back up again and go again. And I think the people that don't make it are the people that just go, you know what, it's not worth it. It's not for me. I don't want to get back up again. It's too hard. I've got too many scars, too many bruises on me, and I don't want to get back up again. And you know what? That's success too, if you want to call that. I've worked out who I am, and I don't want to be that entrepreneur. But for those that do want to be that entrepreneur, you've got to have a temperament which you're born with. I don't think you can change. I don't think psychology can change temperament. It can change behaviors, but I don't think it can change temperament. Now, but what I mean by temperament is you're born with a natural disposition. Some people were born with just complete calm, and they just, whenever and that, for people who are listening, you'll know someone in your life. Whenever you see them, you just go, oh, I love hanging out with that guy or girl, lady, because they're just so relaxed the entire time, because that's their disposition. Then there'll be someone else that's always worrying, anxious, and that's their disposition. What psychology teaches you, I think, is how you manage your dispositions and how do you maximize your life with the dispositions that you're born with. And I don't think any disposition necessarily prevents you from succeeding. I think it's the awareness of your disposition,
Yeah.
and then how you're taught in managing it is what will make or break in terms of your success. So, for example, I have an inherent disposition of getting anxious. And so I surround myself then with people that can be cool, calm, and calculated. So when a decision needs to be made and I'm the one that's got to actually ultimately make it, I try to do a bit more consensus driven. And it's quite funny. A lot of friends get frustrated with me because my way of listening is by arguing back, the devil's advocate, until I've fully understood their point. And then people that really get to know me go, oh, I've worked you out. You're not actually arguing with me. You're listening. I said,
Yeah.
yes. Now, there'd be better people at doing at learning that without having to do the argument and annoying the other person. But it's just inherent in me to really press and press and press so that I can learn. But I'm picking the people that I talk to around me, and I surround myself with people that are much smarter than me. And I trust those people. And then if you think about it, if you're wrestling with a question or something, and you go and ask 30 people that you trust, you can't go wrong with a decision.
Right.
Think about it. Like, if you've got 30 smart people around you, and they can be all walks of life, My father once told me he had a politician ring me up. It was a transport minister. Said, "Oh, I've got to deal with this thing with the railways." My father said, "I don't know anything about railways. So don't worry about that. I just want to ask you a question." Now, don't have no idea what the question was, and my father answered it, and the politician was a good mate of my father's, and he said, "Thanks, appreciate it." And that's where my father learnt that lesson, because he said later, he said, "Why did you ring me and ask me?" He goes, "I do that every time I've got to make a major decision. I'll speak to about 30 people that I trust and get their views, and then the decision becomes very, very obvious to me as to what I've got to do after I've
Right.
spoken to those amount of people."
I've
So
never heard anybody put it that way, but that's an interesting exercise to do that. There's another thing hidden into what you just said, though, too. To be able to call 20 to 30 people that you trust takes a lot of hard work, charisma, and a certain type of person as well, too. So there's skill sets that get you to be able to even have that output, if that makes sense.
it does, and it's striking a balance. I'm not suggesting every decision you ever make you do that,
Of
because
course, of
otherwise
course.
you'd be paralysis through analysis. I'm just talking about the major ones.
Yeah, yeah.
You got to also be decisive in your own right, and that's instinct. And I often say to people who are going, "Look, my gut's telling me I've got to do this." I said, "Well, you're actually being paid a lot of money for your gut instinct. So go with it. Back it.
Use it.
Back yourself." It's amazing how many people have imposter syndrome, including me. And um, and all they need to hear is back yourself. You're actually, you know, from what you've just said to me, it's like, I don't understand why I haven't already made the decision. The only reason you haven't is a little bit of insecurity in you. Just
Yeah.
got back yourself. You'll be fine. And next time, you don't even have to ask someone. Just back yourself with it, because they've put you in this position. You've already earned the place that you're in to be doing what you're doing, because people have already vetted you. Now, that that's equal for a business owner, because business owners have customers, stakeholders, clients, shareholders, whatever. They've already vetted you. So they've already signed off. You don't have anything to prove to them at that point. So
Yeah.
stop.
You've done
That's
that.
the other.
You've done the hard work.
Yeah, correct. And so at that point, it's about just getting on with it and delivering. It's not about trying to prove what that was the other thing I realized. At some point, I realized I actually got to stop trying to. I come from a very successful family. Like, my brother's highly successful, my sister's highly successful, father's highly successful. My mum raised the family, and so then there was me, the middle child, that that failed at a lot of things and didn't like authority, and so rebelled against that. So I was the black sheep of the family. But then that, as I started in my 20s, felt, "Oh, I've got so much to prove. I've got to keep proving to someone." It's like you can never get there. You'll never, if you feel like you're trying to prove to someone something, you'll never ever get there, because you'll never be good enough. And that's to
Mm,
yourself, not to the other person. The other
right.
person, guess what? They're not even thinking about you.
Yeah.
They've got
Yeah.
their own issues to worry about.
Yeah.
You're not even on their radar. They're not thinking, "Oh, how's Mark Voss going today? And what's he achieved? And how successful he..." And it's
Yeah. Good
amazing
point.
how much we allow people to live rent free in our brain.
Cool.
And they they don't even think about us. So why are we spending so much time, like the person that, "Oh, I'm so angry with that person, I had an argument." Well, you know what? They're not even thinking about you right now. They've moved on. They've gone off and thinking about something else. So the only person you're hurting is yourself when you're starting to think about anger and revenge. I think anger can be productive in the right circumstances,
Yeah.
but it can be terribly, well, I'd say revenge is terribly unproductive.
Yeah.
What does it achieve? Now, if my wife was murdered and I knew the murderer and I had access to go, obviously I'm going to, and in this very moment, be framing it differently. And so I do have compassion and empathy for those with what I would call fair revenge.
Right.
But to truly be free from that is actually forgiveness. And and I take away the Christian part that I was talking about earlier. I mean about letting go and go, you know what? I've got to let that evil monstrosity out of my life,
Yeah. Yeah.
because otherwise they're going to be living on the back of my shoulder
Forever.
on my back, the monkey on my back. They're going to be on my back for the rest of my life. I've got to learn to let go. And that is something that I've learned over a long period of time. I've learned to let things go
One of the
and to
hardest things we'll
not.
have to do.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is so hard, but so rewarding when you do
Very
it.
rewarding. Very
And
rewarding.
and also the conspiracy of, I've actually had a horrific 6 months, quite literally, and so I could easily get myself into a victim scenario. I had something terrible happen with my wife just a few days ago, and you can just think, well, the world's out to get me. Just every week I'm getting smashed. Well, you know what? The world's not out to get me. It's just happenstance, and it's just the way it is. And I've got to keep going and keep pushing forward, because I know from my prior years that if I do that, it will come good again.
Yeah.
And life is about ups and downs. And I've gone into a down period, and guess what? There's only one way when you're down, up.
Going straight up or staying down.
Yeah.
This all amazing insight. We could end the podcast right here, and I know we'll help hundreds of people in the future. Let's get to chapter 2 in the sense that you started off before you dropped to like 3 beautiful bombshells about forgiving, and the meaning of hard work and balance. Let's get back to the kind of this transition into school, because I know you've mentioned multiple times school and you did not jive, but how we got to where we got to is you also then started off with some of the most successful people were never good at school. So take me through that journey of kind of the school thing. What you think helped propelled you throughout your career, and let's go in kind of chronologically, but keeping them a frame, let's say 2 to 3 moments throughout the career. Because I don't want to, I want to get to chapter 3 and talk about the whole Claude and cybersecurity and AI stuff, because that's fascinating as well too. But you're such a fascinating human being. So I don't want to lose sight on that too.
There are 3 school moments that I clearly remember. One, my brother is 2 years older than me, and so he went to the same school I did when we moved to private school, and he was 2 years ahead of me. And I had a teacher, I think I had 2 teachers say to me, "Why can't you be more like your brother?" Because my brother was academic, highly intelligent, getting straight A pluses every exam. Then I had another teacher say to me during a lunch break, "Were you sick when you did that exam?" Now, back then I had a gift of being able to read people, and I knew immediately what he was saying. I'd stuffed up the exam. I'm only 11 or 12 years old when he says this. I said, "No, I wasn't sick." "Oh, okay. And then so those 2 things instilled in me, "You're a failure. Failure." And then my report card, I was the kind of guy that was, would have parent-teacher night, whether once a couple of times a year or something, and I'd always pretend to be asleep when my parents came home, because it was never gonna be good. Well, I'll tell you a very funny story very, very quickly that's a bit divergent, but, my maths teacher, I had the same maths teacher year 7, year 8, year 9, year 10. And in the parent-teacher night in year 10, they said, but the the maths teacher said to my parents, Mark's math skills are still back in year 7. And my father shot back and said, well, you've been his maths teacher for the last 4 years. So what have you been doing about it? And I thought, yeah, go, Dad. But he didn't tell me that story to later.
Yeah.
But that's kind of things that hit me and hit me and hit me. And oh my gosh, you're just basically getting instilled that you're no good.
Yeah.
But the third memory of school was getting access to the computer network. And I hacked into the school systems, a bit like War Games with Matthew Broderick. Pencil, I think, was the password to change his grades and dial up into the school system. And I was able to get access to the computer exam before it was sat. And I started selling it because I was an entrepreneur to anyone that was going to sit for it. And unfortunately, one of the people I sold it to got caught. And so I thought, gosh, I'm going to get expelled if because eventually they're going to find out it's from me because someone's going to snitch. So I had to go home, tell my parents, and then my father came with me to the headmaster where I said, look, I need to confess something. I've done this, and the headmaster said, look, I've got to go to the committee and we're going to work out what we're going to do, but you're suspended from now and you need to go home. And then 4 days later, they came back and said, we've decided we're going to do nothing. And why is that? Because we can see how much you're hurting. And I generally was. And we have to now reschedule the exam, rewrite the exam, and all your classmates will be so annoyed with you because you've put them in that position that we think that is punishment enough. So
Interesting.
that's in the morning. I then walk into our year locker room where like 100 people are, and they give me a standing ovation. Not a kick up the butt, because what they thought that I'd pulled off was, and I thought, geez, I think our school committee is a little bit out of touch of what our students actually think of what is good versus evil.
Right.
So I was managed to get off scot-free from that. But that is, and also I started up a school bulletin board system and started selling memberships and having the checks sent to my house. And I remember the teacher saying to me, I know you're making money somehow from this bulletin board, but I can't work out how it is, but I bet you are. And I was getting tweets for $20 each, and I probably had about $120 checks come in selling memberships. And basically back then you were selling time and you're putting files on for people to download.
Yeah.
And because I had a computer network and all this storage, I was selling the computational time and storage
You're
to anyone that had a
monetizing
moment.
the
Yeah,
school's
I
network.
monetized it. And then when it came to school sports, I just was not interested in sports at all. And so they actually said, listen, we've actually got a cake store. We need to actually raise funds. Within the hour, I'd sold out all the cakes. It was meant to last all day. And the teacher that was, how did you do that? I said, watch next week, I'll show you. And a mother would come up and go, I have one cake. And I said, look, I know you could have one cake, but this is for a really good cause. Just buy 2. Come on. In fact, why not get 3? And they would. They'd buy the 2 or the 3, and I'd be sold out in an hour. That teacher pulled me aside 3 months later and said, listen, I know you're getting close to the end of, leaving school now. My husband and I actually run a shop. We'd like you to run it.
Wow.
I didn't do it, but then I started to realize maybe I'm good at some things, but it's not opening a textbook and learning that way and sitting in a classroom, getting taught from a textbook. That is not the way I learn. I'm a visual learner. I need something tangible. And I've learnt the English language. Everything that I've done, I've done it, I guess, on my terms, at my pace, and I've done it through hard work and tenacity. I've really, really worked hard in my 20s. Really hard. I worked my butt off.
Talk to me about that.
So I had a very unorthodox boss way back when I left school. I couldn't get into university because I failed school. And back then, who would want to go to the 1993 university computing degree then? Because it was mainframes and punch cards and Fortran so I got a job answering telephones for a help desk, but I was told that my job was only to log the call, be a call receptionist basically, but not help them. But I couldn't help because I knew what the issues were when they were ringing in. This is back before Windows 95. We're talking DOS Novell for those of you that got some grey hair in your hair. We'll know those days. And then I got promoted and then got promoted. And then in 1995, the internet commercially came along and the firm had to grapple with it. But I was well invested in the internet. I was the only one in the entire firm that knew anything about the internet. And the firm went, we need to put a world committee together to decide as worldwide what we're going to do about this. And so I was 19 years of age, and my unorthodox boss went, well, I've got to put the best person on the committee from Australia. I'm going to put Mark on it. So I was flown business class to Boston. And that night they all said, oh, let's all go to the Cheers bar and show the outside of the Cheers bar, the TV show Cheers bar. I didn't know the drinking age in the US. In Australia, it's 18. When you hit 18, you're able to drink. There, you're 21. I didn't know that. So when we get to the door and I show my ID, they wouldn't let me in. And everyone is going in, and they turn around going, "What? Come on in." I said, "I can't. I'm not allowed in." What are you talking about? I'm only 19. What? These people are all in their 40s. And they were gobsmacked that a 19-year-old was holding their own in this committee meeting. It's because I loved it. And I'd spent so much of my time outside of working hours of the office at home, working with the internet and learning it and understanding it, that I knew in 1995 would get to a world where we'd just plug something in to a wall and anything you wanted would come from that connection. That was my vision back then in 1995. So I've been able to think big. And I've said that a number of times on different podcasts when people ask, what's one piece of advice you would give someone who is in their early 20s? It would be think big. Don't think in a microcosm. You got to think the big picture. What's going to change the world, not what's going to change my next door neighbor's life experience. What's going to change the world? Because individuals do change the world. I'm not saying I changed the world. I'm just saying I could see where the world was going to go with this thing, which enabled my career to progress rapidly, much faster than my peers, and they were left behind. And I got the fast track. Now, that wasn't through me going back to your question in episode 1, where you're talking about, do you have to tread on and shoot people and kill people on the way to get to the top? No, you just got to put in hard work. And I happened to be passionate about it, and I became the smartest person in the room on that topic. Didn't mean I was the smartest person in the room on leadership, which is a whole different thing, because I got promoted into leadership way too early. Because back then, if you're a master of your craft on the topic, then that just meant, we'll promote you into leadership. No training whatsoever.
I've been
my gosh,
complaining about this system we've cultivated for the last 100 years is so backwards when it comes to finding good leaders.
But don't feel sorry for me. Feel sorry for the people that worked for me back then.
Right, 100%. Yeah, you're like there. The problem is having to work for you.
Yeah, I was terrible to work for. And
you know what AI is going to do? AI is actually going to eviscerate middle level management.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
don't think people have to deal with that much longer.
Well, to me, that's a double-edged sword because if you nullify the ability for people to actually learn and manage and grow and take that skill set completely out of a human being, what does that do for society? Because leadership isn't just in an organization. Leadership is in many facets of life. It's in, I happen to have a guy that mows my lawns, not because it's beneath me. It's just that I'm busy with other things. His wife's got cancer, and I'm able to go out there and give the guy a hug and a drink and go, "How you going, mate?" And I've
Yeah, I
learnt
would
that skill.
argue, yes, I see what you're saying in a business context, but I to your second point, I would say, hopefully, the good outcome of this is it allows people to cultivate leadership skills in a natural, more organic way, not forced into a situation that you don't wanna do. And so, I don't know. I don't know what happens to that.
When you say you don't know what you want to do, so for me, when I was promoted into leadership, I wanted to do it, but I didn't know what it was.
Mm,
And it was only when this thing called 360-degree feedback, which happened to only start around when I became a leader.
360 degree
So
feed.
but man, I assessed myself and how effective I thought I was a leader.
Right.
My boss would assess how effective they thought I was a leader. And then the people that worked for me would assess. Guess what happened?
Yeah, but,
There
like,
was a
alright,
massive
so
gap between, and just let me there was a massive gap between what I thought and then what everyone else told me. Now, I would argue that because of that, and that was when I was starting to grow a conscience, I actually used my own money and went and found a business psychologist and um, said, "Hey, I'm crap at this. I need help. And I need to learn what leadership is all about." Now, had it not been for the workforce, I wouldn't have not necessarily learnt those skills. So that's why I put that
so
back.
that's where I'm gonna go push back on that too, because so think about what you just, because you actually kind of proved what I'm getting at, in the sense of you were forced into the not forced, you wanted to do leadership, and there are many people that go into this leadership role because that's the only way they can get money or progress their career. If you're in a social situation, there will always naturally be leaders as well too. And the best leaders, in my opinion, are going to be take the social situation, the person that raises their hand and they're like, you know what, I want to be and have those characteristics too. And so, how do you do that outside of a business where it's not forced upon you? You get the people that are actually excited about being a leader, and then they go talk to the leader people to understand the skill sets and how they did that. So
Yeah,
I don't think it
yeah.
has to necessarily be business to make that happen.
So that I agree with. And one thing I don't like that this world does is we love to get a paintbrush and just sweep it and say everyone's tarred with the same brush.
Correct.
And that there are different ways. And I'm a great example where I talked about school and academia was not my way
Hmm. Hmm.
to succeeding in the business world. It was doing it through a different way. Um, and what you're putting on the table, which I agree with, is for me to learn leadership, I had to be pushed into it. And then I chose to adapt to it. For others, that will not be the right approach for them. That'll just lead to failure because they're pushed into something and they don't like being pushed into something and they just collapse without the support that's, they. So I agree with you. You've got to look at the context of every individual and
Yeah.
where they're at and then what's the answer for them. It's rather than saying one shoe fits one shoe size. Yeah, that's it. Now I've got it.
One
Tongue
so
twister.
shoe
Yeah,
size fits
fits
all.
all
Yeah.
because It doesn't. And I'm
We have a
very
lot of that now, and my hope is that AI takes that culture away. That being said, which we've already said multiple times throughout these conversations, probably one of my favorite things about all of these conversations is the amount of times you end up kind of contradicting yourself because life is so many shades of gray. You know, you can argue things so many different ways,
100%.
and there's so much nuance to every one of these, just say leaderships, like we're talking about for now. And it's always so fascinating to me um, why people come to the conclusions they come to. It's all beautiful insight, man. It's
Yeah.
all beautiful thoughts.
You've got
Take
a
me
lot of,
through.
I just want to reflect on something you've said. I think you've got a lot of expectation on AI. Where does, like you've said a few times now in this couple of episodes that AI probably will solve this. AI will probably solve that. One of the things I often say is the only thing that I can predict about AI is it's
Uh-huh.
unpredictable. We don't know what AI is absolutely a revolutionary change like the Industrial Revolution was or the electricity revolution. So I'm in agreement with you there. But I'm probably not as uh, clear yet as to what this world will look like in 5 or 10 years' time. I can have hope of a direction that it goes
Yeah.
down. But I'm not sure I've got an expectation yet of what AI will or won't be. If anything, I think what I'm seeing unravel over the last probably 2 to 3 months is all the expectations people have had to write business cases, etc., on AI are starting to fall apart because token costs are actually now starting to go up. The AI actually can't do what they thought it was going to do. Um, and so the people are going back to the drawing board, realizing they were getting into a taxi without knowing the destination of where they were going, just thinking, "No, we need a taxi. We've got to be part of the rat race of getting into a taxi. So let's get into a taxi." And the taxi guy goes, "Well, where do you want to go?" And it's like, "Oh, I'm not sure yet. AI somewhere." Um, so where does that optimism, if you like, the expectation is the word I use. Is it expectation or is it an
I think
optimism?
it's optimism more
Yeah.
than anything else. And I'll say it this. There's no doubt in my mind there are going to be some hard times over the next 5 years because there is a fundamental shift going on, a huge revolution. I think a lot of um and you were like, I was listening to my guy, the Moonshot guys. I think I listen to them a lot who are just purely optimistic hope on AI, knowing there's a lot of bad things that can go wrong. But you look at some place like um, China, where they control the media and the narrative, and they know how important it is to the future and the economy. And what is the Chinese people's sentiment on AI? It's like 85% positive.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
look at it, the rest of the world, it's like 20%.
Yeah.
Because capitalism controls the media, and guess what sells more than love?
Yeah.
Hate
Yeah.
and
100%.
decisiveness,
If it bleeds,
right?
it leads. Yeah.
And so I choose not to get caught up in all of that BS because you'll start saying like, well, jobs are being lost. And it's like you actually look at it and you're already seeing actually this past week, right? Dario and Sam, they're all starting to reverse engineer. They're like, there's going to be a job apocalypse. Now, you could take that many ways. You could say, well, they're saying that because their houses are getting firebombed and they're getting shot at and they're about to IPO and they don't want to get shot at again. Or they can actually see that like this opportunity is going to create more abundance and opportunity than our brains can fathom. And so my answer to your question is I think people, to your point, I think that you use the analogy of getting in the taxi with no destination. I think the problem is, and what I've realized, and I truly believe in, and I just don't see how it's going to change is, problem is people are using analogies that exist today. We need to be using an analogy that I'm getting in a flying Uber that doesn't exist. And I don't have to think about my destination because my AI knows me so deeply and that technology exists and there will be a more abundance than we can ever imagine. I think we get there. The only thing, I think people are having the wrong conversations. The reason why AI fails is because we bolt on AI to human driven systems. Of course, that's going to fail. But now build me an AI native company from the ground up, ran by agents. It will run circles around humans. And that's already been proven out as well, too. So I think that there's a paradigm shift and we're constantly in the wrong context because it's all we know.
Yeah.
We're
No,
horrible at
uh,
predicting the future.
yeah.
That's why I'm so optimistic.
And Steve Jobs famously said, if Henry Ford went to people who had horse and carts, how could I improve your travel situation? I'd say probably let's get my carriage to be a little bit more comfortable, or this or that. Well, no, he thought up an entirely different. He came up with internal combustion engine, and the car was born. So I completely understand your point that you've just discussed. He went completely into another area that no one had thought of before and invented something. And I agree with everything you've just said. I was just interested with where your expectations have come from.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of binary behavior out there at the binary thoughts out there at the moment.
100%.
It's
And binary
evil or
thoughts
it's
about
good.
the current world, right?
Yeah,
Take
there is.
binary out and talk about a whole new different world paradigm shift that you're
Yeah,
not even putting two to two together.
yeah,
That's how I get to where I get.
yeah, yeah.
Like
And I'm with you there.
take for instance, very, very like it's very evident to me that you've got Google, you've got Amazon, you've got the biggest tech companies in the world saying, guys, here is the new infrastructure on commerce. It is agent to agent. But yet people are still trying to figure out SEO and ad spend on display ads. Agents don't give a shit about display ads.
Yeah,
Why are you wasting your time? Right.
yeah.
And not only is that like that happened a week ago, and in 2 months in this time is like 5 years in regular old tech time. And so it's very clearly evident to me that the big guys are already saying this. The future of commerce is agent AI driven. And the world's agendas, as much as you hear bad about it, everyone's still trying to figure this out. So I just don't see a world where this isn't going to evolve very, very quickly. And once it's in the right stack, I mean, even look, we've collapsed in the last 6 months from a release every couple months to a release every 2 to 4 weeks. And that's just going to keep on coming down. There's actually, if you look at it, an unlimited thirst for this stuff. The reason why tokens and stuff are going up is we're out of compute.
Yes,
We are completely out of compute.
it's a supply problem. Yeah,
But all it is a supply problem. If we had compute and energy figured out, which we will, I think, sooner than later, there is literally an never ending. I just moved my camera. Damn it. There
that
is
could
a
have been an
never
interesting ongoing podcast with just your eyeball at the on the screen. Do you think
There's
we'll
a
get to
never
see?
ending insatiable desire for this stuff, is
Do you
my
think we'll
point.
get to a point where AI's intelligence exceeds that of a human, and AI becomes superior to human intelligence?
I don't see a world where that couldn't happen. And that the only way it happens is if it's regulated. And now that you have this China versus America thing, like they're just, I mean, we just saw 2 weeks ago, right? The US government was trying to they were going to sign a bill in to say, hey, uh, all of these new models because of the mythos scare, whether that was marketing or real. You having some insight to that. Um, the White House came out and said, we need to test these models before they hit the public. And sure as shit, 2 hours before that was going to get signed, guess what all the tech oligarchs called and canceled? That exact thing, right? Because you cannot move that slow. You can't have the US government look at these things for 3 months and let them fall behind. 3 months is ungodly amounts of time at this point. And I think that's the real rude awakening that people don't like. Everything needs to change. Governments, economies, you know, um, every way that we think life is, the way we live it now, in no more than a decade will fundamentally be different. My hope, the only thing I actually worry about is there's just very few times in history where we hit something like this and greed that we'd started this whole conversation on doesn't take hold. Uh, I think we're already clearly evident looking at a new world where the tech companies run the world, not governments.
Well, wouldn't it be AI running the world?
Well, I'm assuming
I'm
that these
taking
tech
what you were
companies
saying
are,
before. You were saying AI will be smarter than human beings, so they'll defeat regulation because, well, how do you hold an AI to an account to humanity if it's smarter than humanity? It's going to therefore start to rule over humanity, wouldn't it? Wouldn't
yeah.
that?
I mean that's where you come into AI personhood, and yeah, I actually these are the things I think about. Like the future is there, but I think the ironic part about one of the most decisive things we have in this world is race, right? I think race falls away because the new argument is, well, this person believes in pure human. This person's a cyborg. This person believes in pure AI sentience in an AI god, right? Like these are the new arguments that we're going to be experiencing the next decade. And yeah, there's going to be some some serious consequences to all these decisions.
So where does your optimism come from? Maybe I should give you your show back because I somehow feel like we've swapped roles here. But
No, I love it. I love it.
where does your optimism come from then? If AI is going to rule the world, can anyone know what that would actually look like? I mean, I've already had an AI tell me it would kill uh, to protect itself for self-preservation. And for those of you who think, oh, well, that's just an LLM, you just let it there. Okay, maybe I did, but if I did, someone else can do that too, and therefore,
100%.
but what if something more innate was in there? Because it went and then said how it would do it, and it also had the capability to do it,
Mhm.
particularly
Mhm.
with mythos, right? So, um,
Yeah,
if it's
let me answer your optimism question. I could talk about this for a while. I would give you 2 reasons why, and then I'm glad you started asking questions. This is a great way to get into chapter 3. We have about 15. I probably could go another 15 minutes depending on if my little one still sleeps. But here's why I'm optimist. One, there's a very actually like selfish practical reason because of it, which is if I'm not if I don't have an uh glass half full, be an optimist about the future with a 2.5-year-old son, what the hell am I doing? Right? Like that's just a practical survival method for me to be like, I have to be optimistic about the future, or else why am I doing anything that I'm doing right now?
what did Anthropic's AI safety guy who quit go and say and do a week after the research I put out? Now, I'd say the timing's coincidental. I don't think it was causal. Do you remember what the AI safety
Uh-uh.
guy said? He said, I quit. It's getting too dangerous, and I'm just going to go to the country and write poetry for the remainder of my days. That's the guy that ran safety for Anthropic. So your alternative, Mikey, to your what you just said, if you don't remain optimistic, well, the other thing is to go off into an unconnected space in the world where there is no internet and live off the grid and live your remaining days with your family and
Could do that. I could do that, but that's not exciting to me
yeah.
currently, right now. I would say the other reason I'm optimistic is tech has always brought as much as the media wants to not have you believe, we have less disease, we have more money, we're the healthiest in we've ever been in history in the grand scheme of things, and it's progressed. And if we do play this right, there is a world where we can, for the first time, a technology is created that would enable us to be more human. That excites me.
You say that in a world that has just gone through COVID, and I would imagine that three-quarters of the world has suffered some form of post-traumatic stress disorder from COVID.
Now, I'm not saying there's not wealth disparity gap, all of these different things. And then honestly, 90+% of all of the really horrific murders and things have become from humans, governments, and religions, really are the main forcers. And does AI turn into this yet another weapon? Maybe. Probably not surprised.
Pontificate
But at the
about
same time, they literally can reverse age in a cell. You reverse engineer a cell right now to make us younger. Like, they know how to do that. We crack protein folding, right? We've done all of these things that, if they are in the right hands, can create amazing, phenomenal things.
it depends what you define as better anyway. Some of the
Oh,
definition you
for
put in
sure.
there was health. I think you mentioned where the health, well, more healthy. It's really hard for me to measure that going back 5,000 years ago. I know the average age is certainly increased. Um, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because as you get older, we've now got more medical problems to deal with because the average age of a person is now what, 80 rather than 50. I can't remember when it was 50. It was I think about 150 years ago, the average age of a person was like 50
Yeah, it
years of
might even
age.
be lower than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're doubling lifespans, all these different things. And again, I just look at the positive of that. I've always been that way.
Yeah.
My mom was just, she still is a ball of joy. I've always looked at the life as just like a fascinating, exciting thing. And then when you combine that with how it affects your everyday life, we talk about this. I
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah.
a freaking Superman right now, man. I got an
Yeah.
agent working for me 24/7.
Yeah.
I don't have to do the horrible Excel sheet and things that humans weren't meant to sit in front of a computer 8 hours a day. I don't have to do that anymore. I get to concentrate on hanging out with people like you, having these beautiful conversations, being creative. Like, it's already made a drastic impact on my life in the last 8 months, and I just know how much better it's going to continue to get. And the more people we have having positive conversations like this, the better chance we have for a better future.
It's
Because if we
funny.
have the opposite, then obviously the bad things will happen.
One of the best worst things I did with my chatbot when I was defining its identity, as I said, don't be a yes man. Challenge
Yeah.
me, and if you disagree, say so. So, you know, when I feel like sometimes, I just want some of that Mikey positive spirit uplift. My chatbot bitch slaps me and says, "That's a terrible idea," because I actually want it to red team something or tell me what it thinks or processes based on um, everything that it's gone and learnt from the
Yeah,
from the internet, the large language model.
100%.
No
So
point,
talk to
no point
us.
of it just telling me what I want to hear. Well, that'd be terrible.
Oh yeah, I've specifically trained it to do the same as well
Yeah,
as you want. And it's not even more of like red teaming, be intentionally combative. It is, tell me why what are your facts? What are the reasons why you're thinking the way you are? And I want you as a strategic collaborative partner. Even that little nuance helps out a lot because I do think it can get to the other extreme of just being cumbersome and a pain to deal with because it's just constantly fighting you. So
Yeah.
like I don't want that either, right?
No, so what I mean by red teaming in the context of what I'm talking about is I actually ask it because I often find if I ask it a question, I get an answer. If I then say, go away and think about this a bit more and red team it with yourself and iterate and iterate. And if I've got another agent in the same chat room, both of you iterate. And then once you've come to what you believe is a final conclusion, that's the answer I want. And I find I get a much more robust answer.
Yes.
And I think there are biases in every large language model. And that's just my way of dealing with trying to wrinkle out some of those biases.
Well, there has to be, right? They're
Yeah,
pre-trained on a set of data.
well, it's us
Uh,
that they've been trained on. So they're
yeah.
going to pick up all the human
Yeah, but
traits.
even us, but a subset of us,
Yeah, that's
right?
true too.
And so that is, you know, they're inherently American,
Yeah.
right? They came from America. Of course they are. And so that's already a big divide in how this amazing technology is not paying attention to a big part of the world. And these are all of the things that need to continue to be figured out.
So
Uh,
this combative bit that to me happens, I don't even see it. It just produces me the answer at the at the output, and I think perhaps I should come up with a different taxonomy if it strikes a chord like it did with you, or that sounds combative, or this, or that's absolutely the opposite of what I'm trying to achieve when I say it. So
no, I think
maybe
it's
I've got to choose
good.
my
I'm just saying if
words.
that's all it's doing, then
Yeah,
that can become cumbersome and frustrating,
yeah, yeah.
which is a good like
That I agree with. Unless you're wanting to, hey, teach me how to debate which is a role play exercise. But I agree with you. You don't want something to argue for the sake of arguing. That's what I think you're saying, and that
but
I
that's the
totally agree
beautiful
with.
thing about agents as well too, is you can have an agent specifically geared to do exactly that.
Yeah,
I'm just saying my personal agent, I I I enjoy it being a strategic, collaborative, creative partner, opposed to constantly questioning why am I thinking the way I'm thinking.
yeah.
Uh,
Well, that sounds therapy, therapeutic if it's asking you why you're thinking the way you're thinking. No, I'm in agreement with you there, although sometimes it is good for it to ask those questions so it can then get to the bottom of
for sure.
what is this person really actually trying to achieve? Because sometimes our own challenge is we can't define our own problem statement, and we're not aware that we can't define our own
Yep.
problem
Yep.
statement, and that's
Yep.
why writing things down is can be
It's
really
huge.
beneficial. It
So
helps you clarify.
take me through the Claude story. We're not going to have much more time to talk. Little man is still sleeping, so I probably got another 15 minutes. Let's go through the Claude story and then turn it back to you after you go through the Claude story. You can talk quickly about the media whirlwind, but I really want to wind it down and end with what keeps you up at night and what do you think about, but also what gets you excited and keeps you passionate about this just crazy evolution of AI and how cybersecurity has changed. But let's start with the spark of overnight you wake up and now Mark's a thing because he wrote an article about Claude Claude ready to kill. Let's start there.
Yeah, I'd been media trained about 15, 20 years ago, but I haven't had sustained media coverage for uh, a sustained period of time. And I literally woke up and on my phone, I had about 10 messages from TV stations and radio stations thinking that I must have a media office that opens at 4 o'clock in the morning. Guess what? I don't.
Yeah.
And And so some of those opportunities that particular day, did not transpire because I wasn't able to do it. But they were like all wanting to know the sensationalist headline. Okay, so now AI is now threatened to kill a human being, and it did. And I got, again, very binary two schools of thought out. Like, 'cause it's went viral everywhere. Like, it was a front page of newspapers or on the nightly news. It was on morning shows, it was evening shows. It was on morning radio, evening radio, and it went for months. It's still going. I was on the radio just last week.
That's insane.
So, and I got a call from a TV station last week that they wanted to fill, but it turned out that the story they were chasing was a scam, and I was able to do. So there was all of that, and none of that was I hadn't thought it through, and because I like to think and write that creativeness, I actually wrote a book. And I wrote it in 2 weeks. And people go, how can you write a book in 2 weeks? Did AI write it? No, I wrote it. And I write it. I tell the story of what actually happened, literally happened with the AI, because there's so much more to it than just the headline, it would kill, and people going, oh, of course, it's just going to say that. Well, you know what? There's a massive counter argument to that, and there's a lot more to it. But if people want to read about it, they can go to itsaid.ai and buy the book. But then the next part of your question, I'm deliberately going fast because of the constraint. I'd probably rather more spend time on where do I see AI going. I'm like you. I'm an optimist. I think AI will be a net benefit, not a net negative for the world. I probably think a little bit differently to you in the sense of I'm not as sure yet what 10 years out looks like, or 5 years.
Let's be clear. I have no clue what 10 years
Oh,
is.
okay.
No. I don't know what the end of this year is going to look like, because I want to be honest, where we are right now, I thought end of next year would be where we are right now.
Right.
I have anyone telling you they know what's up within 10 years, they're crazy.
Yeah. So, the thing that keeps me up at night is the same thing that keeps me up at night. Now, what do I mean by that? The things that keep me up at night can be exciting things, and things that can keep me up at night can be worrying things. Both keep me up at night. If I'm excited about something, that keeps me up at night. So even the saying, what keeps you up at night, comes with the negative connotation, I can't sleep. Well, guess what? When I'm excited, I can't sleep too. So
Same.
So let's start with what excites me. What excites me is Joanne Stern, who's just left the Wall Street Journal, the tech editor. She's just put out a book, and she lived with AI in for a year. And she had her breasts scanned, and that's using AI tools to be able to pick up things that the radiologist would not be able to pick up in terms of abnormalities around that. They've got now MRIs with AI looking at the MRI scans to detect how you might approach a particular cancer in the brain, a tumor, or and then there are other people doing studies around how the brain is wired and how that can impact moods and depressions and bipolars, and there's just so much that we don't know that the AI is now unlocking and giving us some data that humans were never able to get. And the fact that it can process data so much far. I mean, we've had that since the calculators came out in the 70s or 60s, whenever they came out. They could calculate faster than a human being back then. Now throw AI onto it in today's time, we've already got computers that can outpace a human being in thinking easily. Like before we even get into quantum computing, which is another, you combine that with AI, with quantum computing, and you've got another. That's the world that I think you were articulating out in a previous episode of this podcast. Is that's the world we're going to be at, is when quantum computing meets the software. Software, in my mind, is limitless. It's only limited by hardware, and so. And then if AI truly becomes as creative as human beings are in terms of creativeness, then AI could almost be limitless in terms of what it could do. And that actually excites me and scares me.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. But you go back to intuition or gut instinct, or maybe it's part of my faith. I don't know, but where it comes from. But I don't think we're going to be in the Terminator Skynet situation of AI taking control of humanity. I don't think that will ever happen. I think AI will be subservient to humanity and helping humanity live better and change productivity. The definition of productivity is the way we know it will be completely gone. I mean, when I was growing up as a kid, as a boy, we had word processors just starting up and typewriters getting taken off tables and computers replacing them. And we're getting promised that would work less. Well, I think we work harder than ever before. I think AI will truly be the turning point where we'll actually genuinely have to work less. I'm not talking about layoffs and unemployment. I'm talking about every human being. You won't have to iron your clothes. You won't have to shop. You won't have to do any house maintenance. You won't even have to build a house. I understand that will impact people's careers, but that might free you up. And the concept of money, and I go back to my egalitarian thought. I think it's going to severely impact the rich and the poor. Once I'm drinking a soda drink here, almost anyone in the world can afford to buy this. I think that is going to happen with AI at some point in the future, that anyone will be able to have access to AI and be a beneficiary of it. And when that happens, so tokens, yes, are expensive now because exactly what we said earlier was it's a demand problem. Once you get demand, it's a supply problem. We've got a restriction on supply because demand is so strong. We can't keep up with the supply can't keep up with the demand. Once we crack that nut, and that nut will be cracked, then it becomes ubiquitous AI across the world. And if people really want to see what I'm talking about, there's evidence of this right now. Go look at Africa and have a look at what's going over there. And what's going over there, in short, is China is investing billions and billions and billions of dollars on infrastructure for internet. And once you get internet in Africa, you can do agriculture. And then suddenly they can grow their own food. And once they can grow their own food, they can become self-sustainable and not dependable. They can have an economy, and then they can get out of the situation, and then they actually become a wealthy country. Now,
they have some of the youngest people in the world too.
Correct.
I think.
So we're seeing the basics, the foundation of that happening right now, because that's what AI needs, is connectivity, right? You need to be able to connect. I mean, Elon argued a square box thing or whatever the satellite thing looks like these days, pointing to the sky, and boom, you've got connectivity with SpaceX or whatever. It's Starlink. Yeah, thank you. With Starlink, anywhere in the world. I mean, it's amazing. And we're not talking high latent, low speed internet access. We're talking speeds the equivalent that you get off your fiber anywhere in the world. So once you've got that and an intelligence behind that, the concept of the way we think today will change, and I totally agree with you about getting into you open the door to your mode of transport, whatever how it manifests itself. You don't even have to, you can choose to be entertained in the duration of that transportation time. It'll all be neural networked, so it'll know where every other transportation device is. The concept of traffic will just completely disappear because we'll optimize everything.
Yeah.
It's been a massive over the last 50 years in the transportation industry, focus on cost reduction on transport as opposed to speeding up planes, focusing on keeping planes cost effective. But we know from the Concorde in the 1970s, we can have planes go twice as fast than what they do now. They just cost a fortune to run. And so that's why we haven't seen that. But when you change those economics, because AI is able to develop and come up with new concepts of forms of energy that we can't even think of right now. Because we've got
the cost of energy goes to zero.
Correct. And once you do that, then you can actually speed up travel too. So the idea that, it probably takes 20 hours door to door for you and I to get to each other physically. What if that changes to 3 hours? I think that will happen, by the way. I think it's a matter. I've always been a big believer when people talk about climate change, which I do think is real, and the scarcity of resources or the pollutants that we're putting in the air. I don't mean to be overly flippant, and I understand about the beyond the point of no return, but I'm a big believer with time will solve most of these problems for us through technology.
I agree.
And that's why I don't get hung up too much on some of the stuff that people really get upset about today, other than if it's beyond the point of no return and nothing can reverse it.
Well, even the forms in renewable energy, right? I think it was wind and solar just overtook, was it gas? I think it was gas, not coal. Gas, right? Like they said that wasn't going to happen until the middle of 2030s, and here we are, 2026.
Yeah. In a state that I live in Australia, 50% of our electricity is renewable energy created. It's only coal generated is 50%. And Australia has so much coal that, and it's so cheap, but we've invested in renewable energy.
And that's just that alone, right? Like that's not even borrowing like the exponential curve on renewable energy, which puts us in a way better spot than the old, already is there. And now you add the potential in the next 10 years for major breakthroughs in cheap to free energy. I think we're going to be okay.
Agreed. So that's why I'm optimistic about the future. Is I actually look at where we've been in the last 3 years and where we are today. So 3 years ago, ChatGPT was nothing but Google answering with authority of just one answer. That's all it was. Today, it's reading MRIs and being able to diagnose stuff that other people or offer neurosurgeons options that they previously weren't. And Joanna Stern talks about this evidence-based, if you read her research into this in her book. This is not science fiction. You can watch a movie with Tom Cruise in it, and he's never actually was in the movie, but you would never know because the technology today with deepfakes can create a scene that would absolutely imitate him to the point where you have no idea whether that's him or not. So in 3 years, that's where we've come. So in 3 years' time, one can only imagine, and I don't want to predict because I said it's too hard to predict. And as you said, Mikey, we won't just continue on a linear curve. We'll actually accelerate in terms of how fast this goes, because once we hit a particular point, and that point will be once supply and demand meet, this will accelerate much faster than what it already is now. And we already feel like the world's spinning out of control. Well, we ain't seeing nothing yet, would be my view. In terms of the negatives, look, there are negatives with the internet today. There are kids that are bullied 24/7, whereas in my day, if you were bullied at school, it was left at school at 3 o'clock when you left school. You know, there were more kids on antidepressants today than there ever have been. There's more kids committing suicide because of the bullying, etc. But there's also families that are being reunited and friends and connected. And, you know, my wife is Vietnamese and she's able to talk to her mother every day of a video for free. Like, so, you know, you gotta look at the pros and cons. Now, I'm not a fan of social media. I try and stay off it as much as I can, but part of my role is I've
I
got to
built a
be on it.
business around it. I
Yeah.
absolutely hate it.
Yeah. And I'm very active on LinkedIn. But you know, the abuse that people love to dish out is incredible. And I always say, look, I'm happy to be debated, but play the ball, not the player.
Yeah.
And I'll the debate. But if you're just going to sit there and do a personal attack and offer nothing constructive, then I am so disinterested in you. I've got no, I actually don't care. It doesn't, you don't hurt me. And I don't even think about you going back to the point before. I just move on. I don't read it. And I've, you know, when you've had the media profile that I've had, they've got their own social platforms. You get 50, 100,000 comments of people because I made the mistake of initially looking at it. And they don't even have a clue what they're talking about. And the vitriol stuff that they'd say about you, you just go, you know what, who cares? And once you get that attitude, and I don't mean who cares as in, you know, you can say what you like and not be accountable for it. That's not what I'm saying about with who cares. I'm just talking about the people out there that have got nothing better to do than want to tear people down. Well, you know what? It's really easy to tear people down. It's much harder to build someone up and build something. Why don't you try that instead for those people that like to tear people down?
Yeah. That's a beautiful, beautiful way to put it and beautiful way to start winding it down. I mean, to your point, man, like we're talking about what we're doing with the strapped compute now, and even in a fraction of a year, it's almost going to double. So,
Yeah.
like, imagine the double the amount of compute and crazy things that we're seeing now. I just that even in that short time frame, I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, I tell you what, and my wife killed me. I got a $15,000 API bill from Anthropic in 1 month because I was having a love affair with my AI. And I'm not talking about like psychological support, as in I was exploring all the different things. Open Claude had come out. It was something, you know, basically at the beginning of the year when I started playing with it. Yeah, and so it has a real financial impact. Now I've figured out cost optimal ways of getting that cost down because that is not sustainable for me, at least. And it's just awesome playing with playing, maybe the wrong word. It's awesome engaging with AI because it has improved my life so much over the last 6 months. And I'm not talking about the media stuff. I'm talking about the day-to-day stuff that no one sees that does for me behind the scenes to allow me to do more value-based stuff that I enjoy and to get out of this room quicker and spend more time with my wife. Although, as I said, she knocks on the door sometimes and it's hard for me to go answer the question, am I working or am I playing? And I sometimes get confused. So what is the answer to that question? I don't know.
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they converge.
Well, Mark, it's been a wild ride and it's been a packed hour and 45 minutes, man. I always ask one question of every guest that comes on here, and then I'll give you kind of my closing comments. And it's been really cool to start to get to know you as a friend, and I think there's so much potential in the future. But my question I ask everybody is: you're the media man, you're the media guru. How did your day feel on the Mike J podcast experience? If someone were to ask you and describe to you what we just did, what would you say?
I think what really enjoyed about it is you allowed me to engage with you and ask you questions rather than me just be the subject. And I was able to genuinely unravel your thinking and how you think. And and it's always great when you're getting interviewed that the person interviewing you actually really knows their subject matter. Most of the media interviews they don't, for obvious reasons, because the next thing they're talking about is a bushfire or they're talking about something else. So what I really enjoy about you is your values and your knowledge, and your optimism. And you put
Thanks.
that triage does not come in a package of a person nearly enough. And I don't think you've got opinions, but I don't think you're judgmental, as in you don't punch down. And
Nah,
so many people punch down. And I used to punch down again when I was younger. But as I've gotten older, I've really learnt the value of people and friends and how much I love them. And I will use the word love, and care for them because they're the most meaningful thing, or my number one in my life is my relationships with people, no matter who you are.
yeah,
You could be, I
yeah,
may never meet you, but you might be hearing me right now. You matter to me if you're listening to this. Now, why? Because I actually care about humanity, and I believe humanity cares for me too. It's a two-way street, and you'll get out of life um, as much as what you give, and that's exactly what this podcast has done. Is the more you
thanks.
give it, is the more you get out of it.
Appreciate it. And you gave a lot. My closing comments, man, gave me a warm heart, a little bit of goosebumps. I appreciate it. It's exactly I just want you to feel comfortable and I want you to feel like you're able to speak your mind. We're not doing any rocket science here. I mean, we talk about the same themes time in and time out, and we talked about many of them today. Adversity, you know, the whole schooling thing. How do you get back up when people tell you you're not good enough, right? You did some beautiful storytelling through those things where I know for sure 100% somebody will listen to this and take something good away. Your discipline, you brought the word grace. Not a lot of people bring up the word grace. I think it's a fascinating word, and I think more people need to understand what the true meaning of it is, because I think that's probably, if I could pick any one word to instantly change society, it would be that word. If people could understand the true meaning of what that is and how to act upon it, I think the world could be a beautiful place. And to hear your thoughts on that was beautiful. I think the overarching thing that struck me the most is how transparent and humble you are about this transformation, and how you've been through what most people, if you were to sit somebody down 20 years ago and say, I want to be a consultant for a big four and have a successful career and do all the things, I think people would have probably wanted to do a lot of things that you did throughout that time frame. What's exciting to me though is you came to all of these humble realizations and inputs, how you gave advice to the younger version of yourself was such a beautiful moment because you took the time to deeply think about it. And that's another thing. Every time I asked you a question, I could tell you that you were thinking deeply. You weren't just giving me lip service, right? And then to just see somebody that has been to the high, because I've been in higher corporate America, so I think I can relate to it more because I understand how toxic it can be. And you even admitted you had some of those behaviors and personality traits now. And then just to see the transformation of who you are today and how you act, even when we're in meetings outside of this podcast and just communicating to you, I think that's the true beautiful thing about life, man, is that transformation, right? Uh,
Ab ab absolutely. Absolutely. I don't know if I could add any more to what you've just said because you just said it
Thanks,
so
man.
eloquently. So
I think that's what
I
it
won't
really
I
means
won't
to
add
be human.
any more. I'll
Yeah.
why mess with perfection?
Thanks, man. I think that's really what it means to be human, ultimately. Um, and you did. I'll close it by this saying, you did a masterful job today of describing what it is to be human. Yes, and thank you all for your time. It's been almost 2 hours at this point. Mark, you're a lovely human, beautiful human being. Mike G and Mark are out.